Okay, now we're live. I'm so sorry, everybody. We had a little bit of a technical difficulty there. I'm going to just wait a couple of seconds. Hey, everybody. Hello. Good morning. Good morning. People are jumping in. Okay, great. 11:04. So sorry that we're a couple of minutes late jumping on. I do want to thank rather some of our parents and guardians who alerted us to some scheduling issues if we were going to run live at 12 o'clock today. Thanks so much for your heads up there, and hopefully the 11 o'clock hour works okay for everybody this morning. But as always, if the live version isn't okay, you can watch this at any time that meets with your convenience. And always, you can feel free to reach out to us if we can be helpful. So we have a lot of questions today that I am going to get to. But first, I just kind of wanted to give everyone a little update, lay of the land. I hope you're having a nice week. It's Friday. And hopefully you're going to have a restful weekend. But it is the holiday season, so maybe you'll be running around a little bit. COVID-19. As you know, COVID-19 numbers are increasing. This is not something that we didn't expect. You've been talking about it. We've been talking about it. A recognition that as we go into the holiday season, we would likely see an uptick in identified cases of COVID-19. That's come to fruition. The good news is that we're not seeing those high levels of hospitalizations or really intense illness, and that's great news. A lot of that, of course, has to do with many, many people being vaccinated, and the vaccination process is continuing even as we speak, and there's more opportunity for that if you are interested in it, as vaccination pop-up clinics and opportunities are made available within the school district. So we have to keep watching. COVID-19. It's going to be with us. I think it'll probably be with us for a long time. But the good news, again, is that we're not seeing those major, major disruptions that we saw this time last year. And remember, this time last year, we had, unfortunately, only about 50% of our children in our buildings at any given time. Whereas now, we're 100%. So to see the numbers where we're at, and right now, I think on Wednesday, I think we were somewhere around 40 identified cases of COVID-19 this month, which is a high number. But when you think about it as a percentage of our overall student population, it's less than 0.5%. So every case matters, but at the same time, we have to kind of keep everything into context or in context of what the landscape looks like. We will continue to be meeting with the county executive and the Department of Health here in Westchester County, watching the numbers. And of course, we'll watch the numbers, continue to watch even through the holiday recess in a couple of weeks. We do anticipate that there will be likely another spike. So please be vigilant at home if you're going to be traveling. Keep doing all those great things you were doing and continue to do, washing your hands, staying away from folks who may be ill. And also watching the signs and symptoms, or watching for signs and symptoms of illness at home as well. If you have any concerns about your health, feel free to reach out to your child's school nurse or, of course, your healthcare provider, and we'll help in any way that we can. We have seen some quarantines here in the district. Again, not as many disruptive quarantines that we've seen in the past, and that has a lot to do with vaccination, and also has a lot to do with the changing in quarantine and isolation requirements. As there's more adults vaccinated and more students vaccinated, and folks are wearing masks and trying to be as physically distant as possible. So that is helping to reduce the number of quarantines and isolations. Now, if you're a parent or a guardian whose child is isolated right now or quarantined, I know it's frustrating as all get out. And we are looking at ways to try to mitigate that as best as we can. For instance, one of the things folks have been talking a lot about is the so-called test to stay. And this is a process that if you are identified as a contact of somebody who is COVID-19 positive, you would still be able to go to school, but you would have to take a test, and it would have to be negative every day for 5 days before you could go into the building. So it's a big process. There's a lot to it. But we haven't made any decisions as to whether or not we would even be able to implement that type of a process in a school district our size. We are going to consider that after the holidays and take a look at what the landscape looks like, in the reopening committee, as well as the Board of Education will, as always, consider all options available to us to reduce any potential disruptions on our families and with our kiddos. So there'll be more to come on that after the holidays, but until then, we are continuing to follow all of our COVID-19 health safety protocols and trying to do our very, very best to limit contact or potential spread of any communicable illness in our buildings. So thanks for the help that you're doing at home. And thanks certainly to everybody in our school community for all the hard work you've been doing. Our school nurses, our faculty, our staff members, our administrators, our custodians, our bus drivers, our food service workers, our security officers, everybody who is working really, really hard to try and keep our kids safe and healthy. So thanks to all of you. Also want to talk a little bit about social media, which I'm sure will feature highly in today's Q&A, as it's an enormous topic right now. Not just in White Plains and not just in New York, but all around the country. And you know, I'm thinking, if you haven't, and I have no affiliation with this, so I'm not hawking something here, but if you haven't watched the documentary The Social Dilemma, that might be something that you would be interested in taking a look at. And really what this is giving us a glimpse into is how social media is impacting our biopsychosocial development. That's a big, crazy word. But the reality is that the social media platforms that we're using, including Facebook, that we are on right now, they are created in a way to capture and maintain our attention. And it is so important for us to recognize that. It is also important for us to recognize that because as our children's brains develop, these tactics can in fact alter the way that our kids actually think, and how they think about themselves and what they view in terms of reality of the world. So really big, heavy stuff, I know, but it is something that we have to understand in this new landscape, because the technology, quite frankly, is way more powerful than we are really, I think, giving it credit. So you look at statistics like, for instance, 1 in 3 teenage, 11 to 17-year-old, 1 in 3 teenage females who uses social media has body image concerns. That is an enormous concern for all of us, or it should be. We have also seen a dramatic increase in self-harm by teenagers. And again, it correlates exactly with when the advent of mobile social media took hold. Now, you can't blame everything, and I'm not blaming every bad or negative thing in the world on social media. Remember, it's just a tool. But we as the user in that tool, if we're not aware of what it's doing while we're using it, it can have major implications for us. It can skew our view of the world, and it certainly can impact in a negative fashion our children. We are seeing that play out, unfortunately, on a daily basis, where children are making poor decisions while they're using these social media platforms, and it's coming to a head at school. So what are the things that we're seeing? We're seeing kids who are cyberbullying. I mean, you know, in general, I'm not saying this is happening today, but cyberbullying, body image concerns, potential threats of violence, pictures that are inappropriate, sexting, all of these things that we know are occurring. And every one of us as parents and as teachers says, well, I talk to my kids, so I think I'm in good shape. And you are, until you're not. And as somebody who has to work with families, and some of you do too, who work with families when their children have made a poor decision on social media, I can tell you that it hasn't happened to me yet where the parent says, I knew this was going to happen. Oftentimes the parents are blindsided, they're shocked, they have done a lot of things to try and make sure that their children don't make poor decisions using technology, but nevertheless, there was an area maybe that they missed, and unfortunately the child then made a poor decision. It is not a rash, but every single time it happens, it matters. So, we have to take every case as a very, very serious situation, which I shared with you a couple of days ago. And you've seen this all over the news. And Tigers, if you're watching, you've seen it all over the news too. The unfortunate reality is that when these situations occur, even after consequences are meted out, even after supports are given to the family, all of those things happen. The reality is that the actual social media post or the engagement is still there. And so that's something that we're trying to get students to really understand and take in. And we know that you're helping at home, and thank you for that. But as I mentioned, maybe sitting down for 93 minutes and watching The Social Dilemma together would give us an idea about what it is these platforms are actually doing. They're actually using algorithms to keep your attention and also putting things in front of you to get a rise out of you, to get an engagement out of you. And sometimes those engagements are negative. We have to know that that's happening. So very interesting stuff from a scientific level, from a psychological level, but very important stuff from a parenting level. And every one of us, whether or not we're a parent or a guardian or a community member, has a vested interest in all of our children developing in a healthy manner. Every one of us, our kids, and we say this, and I remember people saying it when we were kids, are the future, and they are. We have to protect them, and we have to make sure that we're limiting, to the extent that we're able, the pitfalls that they can encounter in daily life, and there are many. Some that you can't get in the way of. All you can do is try and educate, but others you can. So things like, devices go off and devices get put away at a certain time at night, only under supervision. Maybe picking an age where you allow your child to utilize a device or utilize a social media platform. Maybe in your household you've decided that, social media, you don't need it. It's not something you need, and that's not something that you're going to be using right now. Now, I know some of the kids who are watching right now are like, come on, Joe, come on, Dr. Ricca. The reality is this. Not everybody is going to make a mistake using social media. It's true. But for the child who does, that is a really serious thing, and in some cases it's a life-altering or educational altering decision, and we want to avoid that to the extent that we're able. Okay, I am going to now jump into the questions, and we have a big stack of them. Just a reminder, if we have time, I'll go into the comment section and answer any questions that I'm able to see, but I might not be able to get to all of those today, so just bear that in mind. If I miss any, or if you have a burning question, you can always reach out to us at any time. And we're going to start right off with social media. Number one, can the school provide social media appropriate behavior workshops or assemblies to students in all levels? It is clear, maybe because of the pandemic, that some individuals have no idea what the line is for appropriate or inappropriate behavior. Thanks for your question. Yeah, and big kudos, big shout out to our amazing PTA. They're in the process right now of coordinating with our buildings to offer social media or digital citizenship workshops, and workshops are great, and workshops can help reinforce the message with our children. But I always go back to this, again, we need to continue to reinforce that message in all aspects of our kids' lives, because when they walk out the door from school, I have to tell you, most of the time these issues do not occur in school. But yes, we are absolutely doing this and educating at all grade levels in an age-appropriate manner about the positive use of technology and the pitfalls. Second part, can you make it clear to all students that there will be severe consequences for dangerous and inappropriate social media posts? Yes, and actually we did address and talk with our entire student body at the high school the other day. We're going to be doing the same with the middle schools and talking with them. But we don't want to approach this as a finger wagging, you're going to get in big trouble conversation. Though it is important for students to know that the consequences are severe. We really want to try and educate them so that they're not making these poor choices, because if you make poor choices in social media, the likelihood you can make poor choices for your wellness, in your life, you just want to avoid that altogether. Third part of the question, and thank you very much for your questions. Would it make sense to have metal detectors at the high school? Is it feasible financially and practically? Well, thanks for your question. In conversations with security experts and our security liaisons, metal detectors at this point in time, we don't see that as a benefit to our school community. We do have a number of security protocols in place at all of our schools that would help to, dissuade somebody from bringing a weapon into the building. Thanks for your question. But at this time right now, we don't see metal detectors because, again, remember, the issues, thankfully, the issues that we're having are primarily related to activities on the internet and outside. But we are, of course, very, very vigilant in all of our buildings. Thanks for your questions. All right, next question, also social media. How many threatening posts were there? We know of 2. Was there another one? Was the high school or the PD aware? Thanks for your question. So yeah, we know that sometimes there are also rumors, and I think that this questioner is actually referring to a rumor that there was a third social media post involving a student. pictured with what looked to be a firearm. That at this time we've not been able to identify that. We've seen that as a rumor. The police department has not been able to identify that either. I can tell you though that there are pictures that still exist in somebody's feed somewhere from months ago that sometimes resurface, or a child may share a photo from somebody else's feed. And it's important to understand that, and I had a parent bring this up, and this was a great point. If there's a picture of a kid who, let's say, went trap and skeet shooting over the weekend with family members, that's not against the law. If there's a picture of a kid who went bow hunting with a family member over the weekend, not against the law. Those are not the things that are coming to us. So it's important to make the distinction here. The distinction is what's coming to us are the photographs that appear to be children in possession of firearms in a situation that is not like I just described. And so that's an important distinction, because I do recognize, we have many children who, with their families or with others, they hunt, they fish, they go, and maybe they target shoot, whatever the case may be. And that is a really important distinction. And I also recognize that there are a lot of really, really smart and safe gun owners. We know that. But that's not what we're talking about. What we're talking about is situations when kids in pictures are ostensibly by themselves or with other kids, not in a safe situation, and with what looks to be a firearm. Those are the things that raise the specter of concern here in the school district. We investigated all those situations that came up this week. Thank you again for your question. Next set of questions, also social media. Are there students at the high school that exhibit signs that they could harm someone, yet are your hands tied that you can't pull them from school? So that's a great question. A very, very normal thought as a parent or guardian. Are the schools able to do what they need to do to keep all kids safe if they see the telltale signs that there's a potential trouble with a student? Thank you for that question, particularly on the heels of the tragedy that occurred in Oxford. We know that there were red flags. We know there were red flags in Parkland. We know there were red flags in Sandy Hook. We know that there are red flags. And in our schools and in our school district, when we see concerning situations, we immediately intervene. So I appreciate you asking that question, because it's important for moms and dads to know that we immediately intervene if we see a situation that concerns us. And you want to know what? Sometimes mom and dads get a little frustrated with that, and I understand it. Because maybe there's nothing there, but we have to check. So please, in the same respect, if you do get contacted by your child's school, your teacher, an administrator, please know that point of contact is only out of concern and care. Nobody's trying to point the finger. Nobody's trying to, put a label on a child. We just want to make sure that everything's okay. And do we have the ability to intervene? Absolutely we do. And thank you for that. It was a very prescient question. Number 2, assuming that there are kids that are removed from school due to recent social media posts, how do you prevent them from entering the building with other students? The way I answer this question is we are able to prevent them from entering the building. We have a very robust security. All security is imperfect. There's no question about it. But we work very hard with the families of the children who find themselves in difficult situations. And it's not just about consequences. We are also trying to, the best we can, support our kids and support our families at the same time. So I do appreciate that question, but thank you very much. Next set of questions, also social media. Does the code of conduct for students speak to the expulsion as a result of online posts of violent imagery or messages? I feel that, this is the questioner saying, I feel that expulsion would be an appropriate measure taken. And then goes on to say, if not, what's in place? Maybe children should sign a contract stating there's no tolerance for things like this, and consequences are severe if violated. A suspension is not a satisfactory course of action, in my opinion. Social media posts are very much a threat and cause for concern. Thank you very much for your questions and also for sharing your thoughts. Yeah, we agree. Social media posts are a concern, just like a written threat is a concern, or a verbal threat is absolutely a concern. The code of conduct does have, progressive discipline, but there are certain situations where you immediately move to a higher level of discipline and a higher level of intervention. like if a child was using narcotics, or if we thought that there was some type of an abuse situation, or if there was violent tendencies or violent threats. We do have the ability to intervene, and we do. Expulsion is a very, very serious thing, as you know. Because and we talk to our tigers about this all the time, right, kids? That school is the vehicle that is going to then help you get to the next rung on the ladder for your ambitions in life. And if that gets derailed, that is going to change everything. So we take expulsion very, very seriously. But more serious than expulsion is this health and safety of our school communities. So yeah, if you do get in trouble for making a threat to your school community, the likelihood of you being out of school for a long time or forever is high. Now, there is of course a process that needs to take place where the family of the child, it's a quasi-legal process called a superintendent's hearing. Oftentimes families have legal representation, the school district has legal representation, and you approach it just like you would a trial. Now, in other cases, when students pose threats to a school community, let's say, there's often a criminal component, because like we said the other day, this is not just about breaking a code of conduct, this is about breaking the law. So, there's involvement with the police as well. Sometimes there's involvement with Child Protective Services, depending upon what's going on in the background. Any way you slice it, it is a big deal. So, the thing that we'd like to do first, and this is what we do with our students, is again to remind them, just stay away from this altogether, and make positive decisions, and certainly don't make decisions that looked like you would want to hurt somebody. That would never be appropriate. So, thank you for your questions. Next questions, also social media. Are there punishments in a manner consistent with the severity of the transgressions concerning the latest shenanigans? And then the questioner goes on to, not showing proper ID, getting in a fight, vaping in the bathroom, drugs, guns, social media. Yes, there are serious consequences in those situations. And any student who is or was involved in those situations has really heavy consequences, unfortunately, that they and their families are going through right now. Thank you for your question. Okay, social media. You're welcome, and thank you. Just wanted to ask, what exactly are the consequences for such threats? So yeah, beside criminal implications, are students ordered to counseling? Are they expelled? Are they made of the consequences? Made aware of the consequences in advance? Maybe they're less likely to do these types of things. Thank you. Great points. Great questions. And you also go on to ask about morning drop-off in and out of the building and the like, as the previous questioner did. So thanks for these great questions. Let me answer them the best I can. Yes, there are absolutely consequences. Yes, the code of conduct is reviewed with our students. Yes, we have been reminding kids and continue to remind kids and parents and guardians as well. Yes, and very importantly, there is counseling services and support services that are also coupled with disciplinary consequences. That's really important to us because kids do make mistakes. And there are times when a kid just flat out makes a mistake. Now, posting or sharing pictures of guns or threats or bullying behaviors or harassing behaviors or sexual harassment, those aren't mistakes. Those are big problems, all right? And there's a distinction to be made there. So we have to educate our kids, and I think this is the point of this questionnaire. We need to make sure that our kids understand that there are places for wiggle room, but there are also places where there is no wiggle room. Thank you for that. Next question. Several issues have not been addressed, like bathroom monitors in the high school, more security in the halls of the high school or the middle schools. Parents are talking about forming a task force. We're losing good families who participate in the schools to private schools over these issues. Please tell me who I can speak with further to bring info back to concerned parents. Well, you're speaking to me, so thank you very much. So let me take this in a couple of ways. First of all, if anybody out there thinks that private schools are immune to the same type of disciplinary or behavioral situations that public schools deal with, unfortunately, that is absolutely not the case. You may not hear about them as much, but I can tell you that just recently there was a student who was expelled from a private school. no return, no refund on the tuition either. So these situations, they're a social issue. It's not private versus public, or New York versus New Jersey, or higher socioeconomic and lower socio. This is a pervasive issue, but I do appreciate the point there. Monitors in the bathrooms we can't do. Can't have adults monitoring inside the bathrooms. We do have monitors outside of the bathrooms. And to your question here, to your point, which is great, we also did increase security presence at the middle school and the high school level. And we will continue to monitor that and make adjustments as needed. But yes, we did make increases to security at both the middle school and the high school. With regard to a parent task force, so the school district has a safety and wellness committee, and it meets regularly, and it also liaises with our district security. I can also tell you that the PTA has been very, very involved in parent information and making sure that parents and guardians are getting the information that they need to help their children make positive choices and be less likely to make a choice that impacts them at school. But if you have any specific questions or concerns, please reach out to me. I'd be happy to talk with you and enlist your support or your help in any way that we could. But thank you very much for your question. Okay, next question. Also, social media. Lots of reports. I've heard lots of reports about fights or vandalism. What measures are being taken to? I think I've answered a lot of these questions, and also I would urge you, if you hear something about something happening at your child's school, but you're not sure whether what the deal is, and you didn't get a K-12 update from us, because we really kind of share everything that's happening in our schools with you, please reach out to your child's principal, or you can reach out to us, and we'll let you know what's happening, or if you missed a K-12. I had a mom reach out to me this week, was really upset, very, very frantic. I don't understand. I don't know what's going on. You never share anything. I heard this happened at the school, and we didn't. And then it came to find out that the parent or guardian's contact information in the K-12 alert system was wrong. So that individual was not receiving the updates. So you can understand the frustration and the concern because they weren't getting the updates. But for those of you who get our updates, you know that you're going to get exactly what's happening as soon as we can get it to you. So make sure that contact information is up to date in K-12 alerts as well. My daughter doesn't want to take the bus anymore because she doesn't feel safe. Please reach out to us. We can help, and we certainly can help with your daughter. You can either reach out to your child's principal, teacher. You can reach out to the transportation office. You can reach out to us. We're happy to help in any way that we can. Okay, next question. Security. All right, question number 1. Does the school district hire security staff directly, or do we go through a private company? Do you do routine background checks on security staff, and are they offered special training? So yes, the school district has a professionalized security staff who are our colleagues. They work for the school district. They are our security team. And yes, they receive special training. They have regular updates and professional development. They coordinate and liaise regularly with our security liaison and our school resource officers in the White Plains Police Department. So we have a great group, very professional and amazing with our kids. We also contract out for forward-facing positions. So we have some contractors on staff, and they are mostly utilized in like the entryways, so that they're interfacing mostly with public, and our folks are interfacing mostly with students. But we do integrate both. And we also offer training for all, and everyone is required to be background checked, fingerprinted, and have a license in the state of New York to be a security officer. In fact, many folks who are our security officers have a former career in, maybe less than half have a former career or connection with first responders or even law enforcement. Second question, any considerations for the future of changing around the school calendar and maybe having longer winter breaks or remote learning during winter months where bad weather, snow days, flu, and COVID are usually on the rise? Maybe having school end later in the year when it's warmer and the weather is nicer. Thank you so much for your question. Really great outside of the box thinking. We are kind of hemmed in with when school can begin and when school can end in the state of New York. That's governed by the New York State Education Department, not the local school districts. We do have some flexibility again this year with regard to remote learning during inclement weather. We also have a requirement for a certain amount of time that children need to be in school, which we have to watch very carefully when we're kind of fashioning holidays and recess periods. So we've not looked at necessarily across the board, moving to virtual or remote instruction during those periods of time. We also know that for many of our families, that would be an extreme hardship, as both mom and dad or guardians are at work as well. Thank you for your question. All right, next question, snow days. Oh, snow days. How will the district be handling snow days? Will we shift to remote Zoom learning if we use more than the allotted snow days, or will we be taking spring break as in pre-COVID days? So thanks for your question. We take snow days as they come, and we assess what the weather pattern looks like and whether or not schools can safely open and make a decision there. I can tell you that I am a proponent for kids to be able to have a snow day. I think that's a nice part of growing up. And if we can get kiddos a snow day, we'd want to be able to do that. I also am not a proponent of reducing the children and the family's spring recess. I know people plan on that. They have vacations planned, travel, and all of that. And we don't like to alter the calendar if we don't have to. So if we were in a position where we were between moving to remote for an inclement weather day versus reducing a holiday, we would move to remote. But we're going to approach that kind of as we go into the winter months. Hopefully, I think it's supposed to be in the 60s next week. Hopefully, we don't have to deal with that too much this winter, but I'm sure we will. Next question. Currently, Eastview currently has over 50 students in quarantine. At what point do we decide there's too many kids at home without direct instruction from the teachers, incorporate remote learning? So in Eastview, we had a kind of a situation this week, unfortunately, because of the configuration of particular classes. We had more students caught up in contact trace than we're seeing throughout the school district. I don't know if we're quite 50 yet, but you're not wrong. We're right around there. As an overall percentage of the school population, again, it's not as large as what we were seeing in the past. But we do want to make sure that children who are not sick but are at home in quarantine have access to their schoolwork and their supports. And I know that our teachers are doing a great job with that. But we are not looking right now at transitioning directly to wholesale remote instruction, not at this time. Thank you for your questions. Okay, question is on masks, facial coverings. If my child is fully vaccinated, do you think in the near future they'll be given permission to forego their mask? Who makes that decision, and when do you see masks becoming optional? Thanks so much for your question. It's a great question. It's on a lot of parents' minds. Right now, the New York State Department of Health is the arbiter of whether or not children in public schools and on public school transportation wear masks. That's where that requirement is coming from at this time. I do know that the state will be exploring the whole cadre of health safety requirements following the holiday season. So we maybe can expect to hear more after the holidays. But that's where you would get that decision-making process from with any changes. I do not anticipate that there would be any changes preceding the holiday over the next 2 weeks, but certainly there could be following the holidays and going into the milder weather, and then of course the summer, and dependent upon where we are in terms of cases of COVID-19. Right now, unfortunately, in Westchester County and everywhere, we're seeing cases pop up, go up, so it would be unlikely that it would make an adjustment right now. But thank you very much for your question. This question is related to quarantine. What are the rules for quarantine if children are vaccinated? If they're told they've been exposed, do they need to quarantine? What are the rules for vaccinated teachers? Do they need to quarantine or no? Thank you very much for your questions. They're great questions. As in the past, a lot of this will have to happen, or a lot of the answers to these questions would have to happen in real time in the situation. So the good news is this: if somebody's vaccinated and they've been wearing a mask and doing everything that they're supposed to be doing, the chances of them getting quarantined are far diminished than they were. It's not an absolute though. Because maybe there was a point in time where the person could have been exposed, or maybe there was just way too many folks who were testing positive in that area, and then the health department would decide to quarantine the entire group. It is important to remember and to call out again that we work in direct concert with the Westchester County Health Department. The health department really works with our health services folks and makes determinations related to quarantines. So we have to take all of the information when we find out of a positive case and then go from there. So it's really not like a if-then chart that I could give you for every instance, but I can tell you without a doubt, folks who are vaccinated are far less likely to be caught up in a contact trace where they would need to be quarantined. We have seen that time and again. Doesn't mean folks who are vaccinated don't get COVID-19. They absolutely do. There are breakthrough cases. We know that. It doesn't mean that even if you're not positive that you could get caught in a quarantine. It doesn't. What I'm saying is that what we're seeing now is that the chances of you being caught have been diminished by vaccination. And thank you for your question. And last question, COVID notifications. When positive cases arise in our community, hopefully rarely, I agree, is there a reason why this year's notice email to parents has less information than last year's emails? Last year we were told things like students from one fifth grade class will quarantine, or students who rode bus 2, as an example, in the morning will quarantine. This year we're not getting anything like that. We're just told that the people will be in contact in the next 24 or 48 hours if they've been exposed. The current email doesn't really contain information about whether or not a COVID positive individual is a student or a teacher or staff member, even though this information is required to be shared the next day on the New York State COVID report card website. Pieces of information like this are also helpful to members of the school community, including parents. If this information was previously shared, and in some cases is being shared through other means, can the email notices be returned to the approach used last year? That would be in keeping with what has otherwise been very good transparency from the district. Thank you very much. Really appreciate that feedback, and happy to share that feedback with our folks. I can tell you the reason, and it really it doesn't have anything to do with transparency or anything. Although I can absolutely see that through the lens. Really is because there's so far fewer people who were impacted nowadays in a contact tracing situation, and a lot of the cases that we have been finding actually don't have any people who are being quarantined. Not all, but a lot of them. So I think I have a sense that that's why we modified sort of the length of the letter. But yeah, we can take a look at that, and if it makes sense, we can add additional information for parents and guardians. So thank you very much. That is the end of all of the questions that were sent in, but I will take a look in the comment section right now and see if anybody has any questions for me. Good afternoon, or good morning. Good morning, everybody. Happy holidays. Good morning. Hey, Miss Smith, how you doing? Thank you very much, everybody. The name of the documentary that was suggested was The Social Dilemma. Even if you don't use social media, I will tell you, it is a very interesting documentary if you're into documentaries. Thank you very much, everybody. It is on Netflix. Any plans to institute mental health checks with our students? That is a great question. So we don't have mental health checks with our kiddos, but we do check in with our kids. And oftentimes when somebody's feeling down or when they're feeling disconnected, there are things you can look for that we see, and we intervene. So while we don't administer psychiatric evaluations or anything, wholesale on children, if we see a child who is, pulling away from a group or isolating themselves, or maybe, let's say maybe they're drawing pictures of, violent acts, we'll check in. We'll check in with the child. We'll check in with parents. Listen, it's happened to me with my own child, who happens to like to draw pictures of army men. That's like his thing. And it's okay, because that means that people are watching over my kid and people are watching over your kid. So yeah, we do check in with families all the time. We do check in with our children all the time, and we try to the best that we're able to identify when any of our students may be struggling emotionally or having a difficult time. And you can imagine with 7,000 children, it happens. And we want to be that support case, and we want to be there to support the family and our kiddos as well. Thank you very much that was a great question. Believe it or not, I don't actually see any more questions in here. So here's what I will say. If I didn't cover something that you'd like an answer to, please feel free to reach out to me. Again, we're always available to you. I want to thank you for tuning in this morning. I also want to thank you if you're watching at a later time. And again, on behalf of the Board of Education, on behalf of everybody in the White Plains City School District, I want to offer you a very, very happy holiday season and a happy and healthy new year. We will be around, of course. There's 2 more weeks until the holidays, but just in case we don't connect in this manner again, I do want to offer that to you. And I want to thank you for your continued partnership and helping us help our kids. This is a team effort. There's no question about it. I can't do it without you. You can't do it without us. Working together, we can do the best we possibly can to support our children so that they're successful and, to the extent possible, avoid any hiccups along the way. Are mistakes going to happen? Yes, they are. Is it the end of the world? No, it's not. But those big situations, they can be avoided. They don't have to happen. And that's what's really important. So again, thank you very much. Thanks everyone for your support and reaching out. I really appreciate it. Thanks to our PTA for helping to liaise and put together these workshops that are going to be coming up. And thanks to our students who are constantly vigilant and let us know when there's something of concern. That's how we can help. That's how we work together. And that's what makes us a very special place, White Plains and the White Plains City School District. Thanks everyone. Stay safe, stay healthy, and stay WP proud. Take care. Have a good weekend.